Hey, Kieran, how you doing?
Yeah, not bad at all. I had a great week. Much better than yours, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, look, we're not talking about
I'm
that.
playing.
But actually, it turned out to be a good week in the end. But enough said. That's the subject for another day. And anybody that's listening, depending when this gets posted, if it ever gets posted or ever even listened to, they may not have a clue to what we're talking about. So I want to welcome everybody and start with this. We've been bouncing around this idea, Kieran, right? About firstly a podcast, and secondly, we spent a humongous amount of time on what the friggin' hell to call it, right? And so we've doubled down right now on digital bites because
Digital Fight Club. That was it.
Right, yeah, and so
God, we can't even get our name right at the beginning. So it's like, good luck, everyone.
No, but it's Digital Bites, Digital Fight Club. I forget what some of the other terms we had. We had all sorts of other things we wanted to call this, but the idea stemmed from. I don't normally listen to podcasts. I don't have a lot of patience, but my wife pointed me to a couple of guys in the British guys. And if you have not seen this podcast, listen to this podcast. Rob Beckett and Josh Widdicombe. They have a podcast on Hulu, and it's to do with parenting hell. Right now, so firstly, there's an oxymoron: two guys talking about parenting, right?
Modern world. Francis?
No. Well, it's the kind of like the depths of how you bring up children and how it changes your life and the kind of things you do differently. And being the guy with like two boys age 30 and over, right? I mean, I've been through all of those, been the single, been together with my wife for nearly 40 years.
But it isn't that type of talk. Just for anybody listening in who's now thinking of switching off, this is nothing to do with parenting.
No. But I wanted to set the scene because it was both humorous and yet it made a lot of sense. Almost everybody who becomes a parent will be able to relate not only to the humor they apply to this, but the seriousness of this as well. So I think the idea is for this, our Digital Fight Club is to really bring a bit of humor to what is a very serious subject, right? And also very controversial because we can't even decide what to call our podcast. The industry can't decide what to call this space. Is it intelligent automation, hyper automation, digital operations? I mean, it's digital process automation. It's just a myriad of So anyway, so you and I chatted and we said, why don't we do one? I don't know if we can be as funny as those guys. That's a lot to live up to. I mean, I think I'm a funny guy, but my wife just sometimes gives me that look, when you think you're funny and no one else does. But I'm okay with that.
I'm now, just for those who are listening in, I'm now also giving Francis that look. So,
but I wanted to be able to come up with something where we can have serious subjects with serious guests to talk about this subject, but also to apply some element of humor. So if you're walking along with us, you can, if you know me and Kieran well enough, that we actually take our subject very seriously, but you've got to go through life in a very light-hearted manner, right? And this is going to also apply to how we choose our guests, right, Kieran?
Yes, and we haven't worked, just folks, in case you're asking. No, we haven't got that far either. Which just shows you how well organized we are.
Well, I was thinking that we could be quite selective on who we choose, but actually the way this goes, it might beggars can't be choosers.
Yeah, we're going to be very selective. We haven't chosen anyone, just so.
Yeah. Okay. So premise of this then, right, is really at the heart of all the controversies, all the hype, all the just everything that goes on around this, whatever you call it. I actually have a slide that says what the heck is intelligent automation, and really it concludes with whatever you want to call it, right? I mean, if you believe in this movement that we are digitizing more and more processes, and when I say digitize, I don't mean computerize. There is a huge distinction for me, right? We used to computerize the way people worked, but I think of true intelligent automation as we're now automating not the way people work, but we're automating the way computers could do the work if there was no human in the loop in the first place. It's very different. Used to walk into a bank.
Doesn't mean it's right or wrong. That's the crazy ass piece here, because to some degree, Francis, there ain't anything new in the world. Do you know what I mean? This stuff we were talking about, you and I, 20, 30 years ago. Maybe we weren't chatting because we didn't know each other then. But companies have been digitizing and automating for years.
But But that's the conundrum, Kieran, because because we keep using the same words, if I was the buyer, I'd be sitting there going, what the heck are they talking about?
But do they care? That's the real question. You know, I wrote an article ages ago and went, like, automation. Nobody gives a about automation. They, you know, they take the names of the tooling and the platforms. They want the capability. You know, and that's the key bit that we sometimes forget we're in the industry. And no, but we need nomenclature. We need to define ourselves amongst other people. We need a client to sign up to more than, yeah, I'll digitize end of full step sentence to make sure we can deal with a contract. I just wonder if we are causing so many of our own problems.
But isn't the very idea of the nomenclature? I know you and I might not necessarily agree on this, which is okay. It's the point of this podcast. But I wrote something the other day where somebody was talking about automation, right? I'm like, we can't even get that word straight. I can automate boiling water by adding a kettle to my life. Okay, so when we go
I'm glad you've given up on the cauldron since you moved from the middle of England. That's fantastic.
Man, I'll tell you what, I'm a tea, but I drink so much tea, it's ridiculous, but I love it. You know?
That, obviously, America has not influenced you enough yet.
No. I buy my PG tips from Amazon, and man, they come in a great big box of like 1,000, and it's like, you know, and I get through them pretty quick. But
again,
okay.
I go back to the same thing, though. Do you know, I know we can't even get the word automate right, but look, to some degree, there's business problems, and I at times I wish we'd stop talking about technology. You know, that's why IT was actually created, to solve or to automate or to augment or do whatever. You know, you kind of like to get back to that, understanding the business outcome, the business problem, having some good numbers around it to make sure it actually makes sense, and then just sticking whatever the right technology is toward that.
But being a little bit, you know, playing the parenting hell role here, right?
Do I start calling you dad? But
you call me whatever you like, sweetheart. Right? So listen. So the reality is, it's the customer's hell. You even before we think about what the business problem might be, we've got to think about what the consumer or the customer thinks the problem is, right? Because it's so easy to swap bank accounts today, or to change mobile phones, or to sign up with new insurance at the end of the year. Now, we typically don't because we're lazy. We're lazy people, right?
Say, yeah, great, we can, but we don't.
No. But listen, we're entering a new era with high inflation, so people will probably start shopping around for deals, etc. So now could be a real good time to look at this. But if you look at it from the consumer point of view, they don't care about the business problem. They don't care about how hard it is to solve. They're just basically saying, I want you to solve this problem. So business firstly needs to look at, do your customers like you? Do they want to stay with you? Do they really give you high scores? If that's the business problem, then I'm agreeing. If they think the problem is, well, it takes too long to do this, and you know, this bit's too hard, or we don't like sitting at a computer doing spreadsheets, it's the wrong way round. And I think this new digital era, it used to be the computer era. I've got to go back to that. You'd walk into a bank, pay money in, and at the end of the day, somebody in the bank would probably be working till midnight doing, you know, month ends, quarter ends, etc., to make sure it all reconciled. There's a ledger, there's a balance, there's a left, there's a right. But in the computer world, you typically don't look at the new payment platforms. You just come up and you just, I mean, we were on the beach the other week, or last year, I should say, and my wife wanted an ice cream. There's a guy come along on the beach with a cart, right? We had no cash on us, but I just said to the guy, he's not expecting my wife to get an ice cream. I said, do you take Zello? And he went, yeah, or Zelle, whatever it is, right? He went, yeah. I'm like, really? That's the bad.
Could we get them to sponsor this? Might as well make some money out of this.
Or we could get them on the chat. We could see what his business is like. See what digitization he needs, right? But he did. It's the digital ice cream man. And so, you know, and that banking system will probably track all of his tax payments. It will probably, you know, make sure that it's debited and credited from his account. There's probably some auto ledgers going on somewhere in the system. So the connected world is connecting in a different way from the era we started. So it's not all the same. And I don't like the word automation used in the same way, because if as a buyer is looking to technology, they then have to go, well, what do you mean by automation? Because your competitor means something different.
Yeah, but they don't know. So here, I'll tell you a funny story here just first, and probably have to cut this out of the podcast for anyone listening. We were many years ago, students. Well, I'll give it a go. You can always make it 18 plus. You're talking about that person taking payment with a card machine. Mates were getting drunk. They lived in a university town in England, because most Irish students go over there, wreck the place, and then come back to Ireland and treat it nice, the way of the world. And there was a local lady of the night who was dropping up beside them and went, guys, do you want some business? And he says, only got a credit card, trying to get rid of her. And she whipped out one of those payment things and put the credit card in ready to swipe. He ran like hell. It was that one. But here, go back to what I'm saying. Like you go in front of two vendors, and vendors got ticks and X's, whatever else, all over the shop, and their words and whatever. Customer comes along to next vendor, and they've got, guess what? Ticks and X's to go. We got this. We don't do that. Then they do a comparison chart. Hope or some analyst group may or may not have done it. Ticks and chart. You move to the next analyst group. They're saying something slightly different. You and I know you filled in all these questions from whatever, analyst firm, 250, 300 questions later. You can interpret the damn things the way you want. And ultimately, do you come out any wiser or any clearer? And I think, and this is part of our problem as IT people, if you ever look at a business person in the eye, and hopefully to God, we consider ourselves business people too, you go, okay, you want that. Well, yeah, but what do you want this? And do you mean that? And you're starting to ask them 1,001 questions where behind their eyes, after they've glazed over and not killed you, they're sitting there going, like, I just had this problem. I want to move data from there to there. I don't care if there's 3,000 ways to do it. I came to you as a professional. Just make the damn thing happen. And we sit worrying about, they'll come back later and they'll complain. Yeah, well, you need to use the right words. Well, we don't want to invest in tech that we haven't got. And by the time we've actually engaged them in a nice, concerned, helpful business partnering way, the bloody world's moved on. And then great news, we've invented Agile. We can solve that one. And we're getting the same people into our meetings, turn around and ask them 1,001 questions that they don't know the answer to, not having the unicorns in the middle that hopefully the God can answer questions for both teams, or sometimes get a kicking from both teams, depending on what project you're working on. So I do wonder if we're still doing enough. I'm not knocking words or anything else, but are we really?
Hey, Kieran, you've just done a wonderful job of putting everybody off. But listen, but no, but no. I think the reality is, right, you've given all the problems, all the reasons, all the excuses, because I think people have got to change the way they look at the problem. And this is, call me naive if you like. It's almost like that parenting hell. We all have a desire for our kids to grow up safe, with a career, being who they want to be. But there's some realities around that. And when I do my presentations, I specifically try not to talk about the technology or even the vendor. And I work for a vendor, but I want to be able to say to you as a customer, I want to sell to you if you believe what it is I believe you need to do. And here are customers that I've seen this, because what a business typically only sees in their lifetime is one or two of their careers, one or two or three other businesses. I get to see hundreds, thousands of businesses doing good, bad, and ugly with technology, right? And so there is some credibility, I think, that comes with the vendor. But equally, if the vendor jumps in and doesn't ask you what your problem is and says, we sell this, and this is why we're different, and this is why we're better, that's not a good lead. Firstly, I'm trying to sell the space we're in. Do you believe that you can change the way you do business with your customers to become the envied? I've talked about this before. And if you can, then I really think that we can have a conversation, and I can tell you how we're different, and I can tell you how the competitors are different and how they're better than us. We haven't, no one vendor has everything, but I think that then puts the business and the buyer and the procurement and IT in a better position to say, I want what he's selling. I might not even want to buy it from him, but I want what he's selling. And that's my mantra. So maybe there's a good balance between the two of us here, right?
But mine is not to be negative for the sake of it. Just don't get me wrong. It's 27 years.
You're a realist. I'm sorry if that came across as me saying.
No, not at all. Not at all. Because but we need to be clear for folks listening in who don't know us. It's not anyone listening in to be negative. These are all the things that we do badly as an industry, and I use that as a collective term. Not everybody's approaching it from the same thing. Because take the current sector, that you and I are dived into in the last couple of years: robotic process automation, intelligent automation. I'm not out of shaming the devil. I'll not name them. 3 main vendors sitting in front of me, 3 days on the trot. Yeah, we do this and they don't do that. We do this. The next day, yeah, we do this and they don't do that. It sounded exactly the same to me. And I know technology terms, and it used to be a game of, you could almost, if you got really fun in this, you could do bullshit tennis and draw out a page and go, right, what am I getting told today? So as technology sales professionals, technologies installers, the way you're describing is the way that I would want to be treated as a business. In other words, look, what's the business problem? I think there is a problem with that. Now, again, not throwing up a problem for the sake of it. All CEOs, CFOs, boards, and whatever else should understand what is possible with technology.
Amen.
So that when they are setting a business strategy, then they're doing this from a massively informed way. There's no way you would let someone on a board or run a company without financial experience, but we, in a digital age, allow people to come along with limited, at times, technological, automation, digital, whatever you want to call it, experience. And then they're setting a strategy. And the teams beneath go, my God, but this is so mundane, repetitive, routine. We should be forcing that and then having the conversation that you're having. So we're a meeting of equals, but I do expect technology professionals to bring perspective and insight and expertise, just like I expect my CFO to turn up with financial expertise and acumen and allow them to help me design the business plan and to build everything around it. My goodness, if we could come to those mature conversations, it'd be amazing. But we have to recognize, and this is the tough one as well, probably people have to eat, and if you're a startup or whatever else and your product's MVP, but it can be amazing, you're not going to say, to everyone you meet, well, it's not quite ready yet, go down the road to Francis or someone else. They're great, and it'll do.
Well, but to be fair, and this is where I think we want our audience. I think where we want to be selective, if you're listening and you want to be a speaker, what we want is for people to share their view, not to be right. I always joke with my wife, right? I'm always right till she tells me I'm wrong, right? But I use I never say anything I don't believe is right. And I've sold the most successful large deals by actually not selling. I mean, just tell them what I think they can do and what they can achieve. Then they might go out. And sometimes I'm not even selected first. It might be 2 or 3 years later. They might come back and say, Francis, you were right. Or never. I mean, they could be successful by choosing something other than what I'm not perfect, right? I'm not a narcissist.
Really? My God, there's just so many. We've just lost listeners.
We just lost listeners because I'm not perfect. I'm nearly perfect. Yeah, we got them all back again, right? No, but in all seriousness, I think that's what we want for this podcast to be. I want to be able to have an open discussion about the art of the possible, what you can do, and then the pragmatic about, well, do you really? Because then the business has to make a choice. Francis, I know what you're selling is nirvana, and I want that, but for now I have to have this. So then the discussion says, well, can you have that as a sacrifice to that, or as a journey to that? I've seen people turn to RPA all too often as the end game.
Yeah.
And it's not an end game. And people, in fact, I even got told, Frank, you're so negative on RPA. I'm actually not negative on RPA. I'm negative on RPA if you think it's the end game. If you want to use it as part of a journey and you're having discussions internally about how to evolve the very processes that you're having to wrap and put stuff around, then I think that's great. Anyway, what do you think, Kieran, that's the kind of person we're looking for?
I think, look, invite on people who are not going to be filtered, who are not going to come on with agendas, for want of a better phrase, to sell particular products or solutions or someone else. Come on, have a healthy, what I would describe as balanced perspective, be able to get torn apart, be able to tear others apart, be able to give out the real world experience. And let's have people who have a good bit of experience coming on as well to try and share this.
But also, they don't want to listen to us. Well, and also they don't want to listen to anyone for hours. We want to leave them with something, like the parents in hell. What could we leave somebody? Like, if you're going to go on a flight, I read the other day.
Hell, probably.
Well, I read something in the paper the other day where somebody actually hired a babysitter to take their kids on the flight with them.
$1,000.
Taking your young children on the flight is parenting hell. But their memories, I think that, it is what it is. You look around when yours is the only child crying the entire flight because they had problems with their ears. This happened to my son, had hearing issues. We didn't know then, right? And on the flight, non-stop cried the whole time, and it was just, I felt for all the other people.
I'm going to edit this out, folks. He will stop after a while.
But so, yeah, stop crying. No, so maybe we should go through who. I mean, listen, there's a lot of analysts out there that I respect, right? But equally, they have their job, right? So they have to give their point of view, and sometimes that point of view, I wish almost like there was an analyst. I've even thought about this in my next life, right? To become the analyst of analysts.
Ooh.
Right? So you actually do a matrix or a wave or MQ on the top 5. Now, there is some of that because Phil First, he actually shares, where HFS is in the whole hierarchy, but they don't do it like, do you get good advice? Do you rate them? Do they have peer reviews on these?
Get them on and ask them then.
Because they're generally, I would say, out of my experience, is that 50% of what they say is the same. Sometimes it's as high as 80 or 90, but it's where they differ there's no debate about why they differ. It's like they have to differ because that's where, like you said earlier, it's where they make their money, right? And I think that also creates a conundrum. If you're an enterprise that only uses one analyst, right, you're going to get their view. You're going to make your business decisions based upon that. But if you go out there and actually use analysts and you use, hopefully, thought leaders like ourselves, where we're trying not to sell, we're talking about what we see on an everyday basis, I think there is a revolution coming. And my talk track, that we're in the midst of a digital revolution. It's not more of the same. We've never had so much compute power. We've never had so much elasticity or storage or speed. We've never had so much ability to build things in days and weeks that used to take years and fail, right? Now you can fail in a couple of days and say, well, that was shite, right? I'm going to build something else. It's great. It's a great world to be in.
You've seen my career. Look.
Well, we were promised that. Like my last one, we were promised that. Right, years ago, because I was involved in that in the 4GL world where you could build stuff, object-oriented program, you only build it once, this kind of stuff. But the reality was the technology underneath couldn't support what we were promised, right?
Yeah. It's interesting because the conversation the other day with someone saying, what should I invest in? Is really interesting because I signed up to be a research fellow with a fantastic college in Boston called Nichols College, and the students went out and interviewed folks. And it's massively interesting being in tech because we know what we know, but there's some of the perspectives coming back where, well, we don't want to invest because it's going to change, and therefore absolutely terrified of spending money, and that's a real fear. Someone else said, I hate the IT team. They just do nothing for me. And then again, you probably meet the IT team and say, I've got 1,001 things to do, not enough budget, not enough time. And remember, Pina, as someone said, is always local. So in other words, the pain is felt by the team in wherever they are at the moment, not globally, right in the middle, which is always a comical one. And I do think people do struggle to talk to IT people, just like people sometimes struggle to talk to their CFO and whatever else and understand the numbers. So lots of things to solve. So who could we get on? And criteria is, look, independent, has experience, no bullshit. If they do have an interest, they should declare it right the way up so we can objectify their conversation or sanctify
we have a swear box.
Well, yeah, I remember I had this guy on my podcast once who did a different podcast to get mentioned his company. They've never paid me any money. Have to put that one in definitely.
I thought I sent you that $1.
No, you didn't actually. Hence, just to be clear, and look at your name on the screen here. Scrub that off in some shape, form, or other. So again, guests happy to people suggested as well. Because there is a lot of people in our industry. Now, the question is, how many people in this industry would you actually listen to, number one? And then here's the paradox of all sorts of things. Who's amazing out there who doesn't go on podcasts or talk? Because they probably think, God, those people talk about the crap, and I'll ignore the lot of it and I'll just get on with doing it. And they're just amazingly knowledgeable in their sector. Maybe video puts them off. Maybe that's why audio like this might actually help them instead.
Well, maybe I like the way you're going there, because we want them to change our mind. We want them to be passionate about this. If they disagree with us, is like, that's, I think we can throw the bombs out there that says we believe this. Sometimes I do that even if I'm not believing in it, because you have to take the controversial view to get discussion to verify what you've said almost. Because you're someone that says, oh, that's a really good idea. I'm like, I even question them. Well, is it? You know what I mean? I question myself.
God, that's going to be hell for anyone being interviewed. By the way, I'll scrub that out so people think they're going to come on to a nice interview instead of that crap.
No, I think
I'm playing with you. No, look, if we're all, as we did a couple of years ago, I'll use this collective term, us as an industry, lemming over the hill and repeat verbatim, 50 robots equals success as an example. We're wasting our time on this podcast and we're wasting other people's time. It should be good, healthy discussion, man, fantastic debate, not like-minded people, for the love of God. I think we need different people with different perspectives, which is probably why you and I get along so well. At least we get a damn good argument out of it. And let's see what content appears. If it's interesting, fantastic. If it's not, as ever, you and I will have a bit of fun listening to each other and arguing like hell. And then we'll ask some questions and answer them.
So the format I liked is that, you and I can chat like this. We chatted for a few minutes now, but you and I chat like this. Then we bring the guest on, right? And we chat with them, and they may only be able to spend 5 or 10 minutes with us, but we'll perhaps know that beforehand, and then we can
talk about them when they go, or is that
when they got? No. Yeah, good idea though. But then we also, so from a subject matter, I think that when you were just talking about IT, I have written about business and IT alignment, or rather misalignment, for decades. And I have empathy on both sides, and I also have annoyances on both sides. Business say what they want, IT don't deliver what they want, business complain. Well, did business not articulate it properly? Was the technology not there for IT to be able to say, right, you've made your commitment, we have to build it this way, so there, you got what you asked for? I don't think you can point a finger at anyone, because I think it's accumulation. But I do think...
No, when it's pointless. Although I did hear a good story the other day. It said, look, IT will be around forever. And they got, well, why? Because the business can't explain what it wants, so we'll keep iterating and iterating and iterating. I thought that was a paradoxical joke.
But it's true, and I do think
they'll never automate it. Why? They can't describe what they do. It's like fantastic.
Well, I think of it as this era. We cannot deny, right? I live in a house. I think I have 60 devices.
Really?
Or 70
you moved out of the tent. Fantastic.
It's going to go downhill fast.
In a bungalow,
so I've got 70 devices connected, right, to my home. 70 at any one time.
How's the radiation burns going, by the way? I notice you're pretty tanned, actually. Yeah. I know why.
It's because I'm under this window here that you can see that our audience can't see.
The 70 devices are just radiating.
Yeah, actually, the window in the house spins to make sure I'm always in the sun. That's what happens.
Okay,
that's one of the devices I have, is the auto movement sensors. So from an if this then that perspective, all I wanted to do was to say, like, let's say my porch lights were on, simple, right? If somebody then walked on my yard, I wanted other lights to come on, but after 2 minutes for those lights to go off, but leave the ones on that were already on. Could I do that? No. There was no programmatic way in the if this then that. So it was if this, but not the F that. So it should be called IFTTMB.
I think we realized this from Digital Fight Club to Francis rants at various technology vendors.
Ranting's okay because it gets us to the point in the end. Right? I do always have a point. If I don't end with a point, then shame on me. But my point here is...
Oh, right, good. Signposted, lovely. Listening audience.
The intent was good. It's to try to join together disconnected technologies in a way we can both understand, predict, and start to automate, right, to the ultimate end game. So I know what I wanted to achieve, and then I sought out the technology to achieve it. Now, at the time, I concluded it couldn't be done. There was enough stuff on Reddit and other places that said, no, well, you could, but you had to go and deep programming it. I was like, oh, it's not worth that, right? But I do think that we're in that same era, like parenting, like if this then that, home networking and connectivity and automating the kettle or boiling water with the kettle. I think where we want to head is to say, what we're trying to achieve, is the value in what we're trying to achieve really impacting our customers, because ultimately they're number one, and our investors should be number two, right? But as some would argue,
argue with both of those in a second. But I like the way you're sewing this up. Anybody listening in will assume that we're actually somewhat organized. That's the wrong assumption, by the way, just to be clear. But
totally wrong assumption, yes. We don't want to be organized, I don't think. It makes it more fun. I mean, if somebody's on their walk now, they're at the 28-minute mark, you can slow down now and start taking deep breaths. Or maybe you can take a deep breath.
Oh, they gave up listening long ago. Don't worry about that one.
They're off listening to Mel B or whatever it is.
Yeah, oh, God. Yeah. Well, no, here, what I was going to say.
That shows my age.
Someone said, actually, keep your customers happy. Yes, definitely number one. Number two is keep your staff happy, which I firmly agree with. Then keep your investors happy. And I kind of like that order of things. But let's argue that one as well. So here, just sewing things up, when you were describing that we have a point near the end, have we worked out the point of this digital fight club? And who the hell we're inviting on?
Come in and fight. Bring your boxing gloves, right? And then maybe we conclude at the end. Was that a draw? Was that a fight? Who won? Mate, no, actually, we don't want to. I don't think there's a win or lose, right?
There is. We know. We're not. Oh no. Next, you'll want a medal for 9th. So no. No well done's for 9th, Francis. Just
everybody gets a medal now.
No, not my house. They don't.
No. No, I'm
not digital fight club. You don't. You win or you lose, but we'll
win or
lose. Not be gentle. Unless we need to work out is UFC or boxing. One to think about.
I don't know. We've got so much work to do. We need a logo, don't we? We've got to post this one and just like heads down and see who like listens to it. We're also gonna put this post up, but we are expecting you to put something in the feed. Don't type it while you're trying to walk, because you might trip over a dog leash or something. Walk into the middle of the road. So wait till you're safely in a safe location before you type your response.
God, welcome to the modern world. We're having to put bloody disclaimers and everything happening on this one. Yeah. So
or just get on with it, but don't blame me.
Yeah, done. Done. You walked out in front of the car, just advised the guy who was driving into you, the ambulance, just to make a comment on the particular call.
Well, I know a good insurance company that's fully digitized that's going to be able to deal with your claim really quickly.
They're
and
not.
efficiently.
They're not.
But I won't mention them because I'm not selling. Right?
No, and no one makes sense of the podcast anyway to sue you or I, and I've no money. So what a waste of time doing that.
Well, I am going to give kudos to these two guys because it is really funny. I know I'm going to mention them again, right? Rob Beckett and Josh Whittaker, because I think it is like anybody that's right at the beginning of their parenting or have gone through parenting, you're both like, you might even consider whether you want children when you listen to these two. But no, listen, it's like.
So this is an advert for them. That's what we've done today.
Just for having children. No,
right.
No,
right.
I'd like to be measured up to them. If we could come up to half of what they are in the digital world, bear in mind, there's a huge difference. I mean, I said the analogy, but bringing up children and bringing up computerization.
Yeah, they are comedians professionally, and we're not. Just so I'm.
One's
remember that bit at the very beginning. Notice how we're sewing this together so neatly at the end, where you went, "You think you're funny, and your wife thinks you're not." Let's just keep working on that one.
No, she's
right. Logo.
So how long are we going to have for this? So how long are we going to make them? 30 to 40 minutes? To not fix the time?
Until we get bored, which is always
interesting. Hey, those other two had Michael McIntyre on the other week as well, and he was really funny because he's always good at talking about his kids, but they're all grown up now.
Does he know anything about computers?
No shit about computers.
Does he know shit?
No,
I did see him at a talk once. He was quite funny. He tests the audience just at the beginning by getting more and more rude.
He does. Yeah,
I like that. Maybe we should do the same thing. Just see how rude about technology.
So let's talk about a couple of. Listen, I want to just throw in a few bombs in terms of the types of technology that I think are hot and real, right? And also talk about the technologies that maybe are not so real but hot, right? So, and what
about technology companies? Are we
sorry?
going to mention them? Are we mentioning technology companies? I have to say, I've been pretty agnostic.
We need to. I think the very point is, if we get asked who does this, I'm happily share, and that can be competitors or it could be. I don't really mind. I think we can stay away from. We don't have to be vendor agnostic, but I don't think we want necessarily to be,
endorsed. Although if someone does want to sponsor this for a ridiculous amount of money per episode,
put $1 in the swear pot as well.
Yeah, just insult me by sending me those tens of thousands of dollars. Francis doesn't need them.
Well, we're going to end up with so many listeners. Listen, if we get $1 for every time we mention the company for every listener, man.
Yes, $4. That's me, you and our two wives.
Yeah, that's in total, not at any one
time.
Yeah. Hey, listen, don't forget, we've got to go do a deal with Hulu, or we've got to choose who's going to actually play this podcast. You think?
You should call it the world.
All right, so back to the technologies, right? So what's hot? So we got to give a hot. So I always said I love RPA, but there's a massive but, right? I'm one of the inventors of.
We're not going to talk about that. We will talk about it, but not an exclusive. So intelligent automation, digital.
No. Okay, so I'm going to go back to this point, right? Because this is a key thing. What someone calls it isn't necessarily doesn't really matter to me, right? So now RPA is hot. It used to be called screen scraping, UI automation. Everybody's claiming it's something that I don't really care, right? Likewise, low code. What's low code? I now talk about high code because I actually have a hashtag now called high code. Why do I have that? Because nobody knows really what low code is. In order to define low code, you need to say what high code was, right? So
you also got a code called Hi-Ho Ranger, but let's avoid those ones. Right, so guest.
Highway code, right? Highway code. No, high code.
Highway code. Guest. Logo.
Topics. We need topics.
Topics, guest, logo, topics, platform. There.
So RPA could be one, but it's got to be reality. Intelligent automation, but I like what the heck is intelligent automation? Come to us and tell us what you think it is.
Yeah,
and actually, maybe we could have one episode where we don't mention that word automation, because everybody talks about automation
of this whole podcast, but I like your thinking quite
well. No, digital Fight Club is not the automation Fight Club, right? Come on, we can play.
On point.
But also, I and I think that we'll probably have an episode where we talk about the future. Star Trek-y. What's it going to look like 20 years from now, just for fun?
You do that, I probably will have an episode, but not the one you're thinking.
Well, no, it doesn't be Star Trek. It could be Star. Anyways, future. Give me a break. Futuristic, right? If you were to dream Nirvana, what would Nirvana be in IT?
Oh, sorry. Yes, it would be particular model.
Yeah. and then there's the reality, your choices you make, right? So I think this is also, the Digital Fight Club, you've got choices. often many things are all right. I mean, all right, all correct, right? You could do RPA, you could do low code, you could intelligently automate, but which one are you going to choose? Why and what's next? I think that's that journey thing I was talking about.
But sticking on your point a second, though, a lot of bloody technology is right, and stop looking for the next damn shiny thing. I think there's just enough technology in the world now to do everything bloody well want. Never mind going, oh, I wish, or I'm not investing because of tomorrow. Shiny object syndrome. But
there is, but you've got to keep the lights on. The big elephant in the room is too many people. You can't just throw away everything you already have.
No, I'm not talking about throwing it away. I'm talking about not moving because you go, well, I'll not invest today because there'll be something better tomorrow. Or you see this time and time again, if only I had this app. Well, what are you making use of your current app? You know what I mean? I just see technology that people invest in very often isn't exploited to death.
Well, we're going to fight over this one. We're going to fight over this one.
Let's do that one in a talk.
But this sets it up for maybe who we get on board. So here's the fight from my perspective. I think you do need to review all of that from patching, band-aiding to nirvana. You go through all of that. You select all the products that could give you each of those, and then you make the decision based upon knowing what you could do, but you're making the decision of not doing that because of what you have to do. I'm okay with people having to do things, knowing that there's a better way, and making that. What happens is people do things thinking it's the better way, and that frustrates the heck out of me. Does that make sense?
That's knowledge. So who are we going to invite on? Right. So here, get down to.
Oh, do we want to mention
logo
names?
Platform name?
I think we.
Well, we could mention names, then they won't come on, and then we just get them back. By the way,
who wants to be first? Hey, we should listen.
Who wants to be first?
Yeah, let's do that. Listen, who wants the glory of being the what's the word I'm looking for?
Dead guinea pig.
No, I was thinking a little bit more positive than that. You know,
right.
The fight.
We're already forming roles on this one. Just
the
who wants to make it up as we go along, watch helplessly as we make an absolute arse of a podcast. Yes, have you got this?
We can't. I mean, because listen, if no one listens, it's still a podcast.
I don't care. Well, all we're doing is recording your mic.
And we don't care. Listen, we're so grown up. Anyway. Tell us we're shit. We don't care, right? I mean,
I honestly don't. That's one of my problems.
Well, I'll tell you that enough times, right?
I know. I'm used to. Notice I'm now immune. Throw anything at me. Francis has done it many times before. The therapy is working.
Oh, this has been good. Listen, I hope others. Oh. So we're going to throw this out there, guys. You could really tell this was not rehearsed. In fact, it took me 10 minits to sign into the podcast because I had technology
and it won't get any better.
I told our audience that before you did, right?
Yeah, right. It's not going to get any better.
For some reason, Chrome decided to upgrade itself, and it needed the hardware switch for my graphics card. And it needed the new version of this, StreamYard. Oh, and StreamYard doesn't work on Safari. So there you go. Those three got me 7 minutes late into this podcast. But you won't miss me.
Do you know something? The worst bit is you've now told me that 8 times over the last 8 months. You're just bloody late most of the time. So it could be the nice bit.
I could prove that because there's a log. If you want to look, I can send you the log of when I.
No, it's okay. I've moved on. I
already.
Moved on already. I'm just gone. Right. So we need someone who's willing to put up with 2 damned idiots, who's willing to keep us regulated and somehow hope they come away with their reputation half intact.
There's 2 things. We obviously, there's one thing we're saying who we want to come on with us. Then there's our audience, right? Who do we think this will benefit? I think anything, whether you're in IT, whether you're at the business layer, whether you're starting your career out in technology, whether you're looking to shift your career, we want to have discussions that's going to give you insights. Oh, this sounds really cool, doesn't it? That's going to give you insights
I'm listening.
And direction. What a job. No, and genuinely, that is the genuine aspect of this. Fun aside, right? We want to at least leave you with something so that you end this walk feeling a little bit more motivated about what you're going to do when you get back to the office or when you get back home, or maybe they're the same place.
I was going to say likely.
Well, yeah, but you are in the home mode or work mode. Maybe that's what I meant. And if we can at least have one little impact into what you make that decision to be, that I think we want you to come and listen to these podcasts. And so you can help us steer it. And equally, if you think you can influence that audience with what you have to say, come join the Fight Club, be brave, right? It's a kind of I'll get off the pot time, right? Come and share your views with us. Have that fight. We're more than happy. We don't care if you're the CEO of a competitor to me, or if you are, you're starting a business, or if you're running a division in the world's largest motor manufacturer. Come talk to us. Come share your view. Lots of people will really benefit from that. I think I can think of at least 100 different people that I'd love to have on our show. I can't believe I said that. Our show.
Show. Oh, that's very brave of you.
It's a podcast show.
But do be warned, we don't have insurance. And
do be warned, we don't have insurance. Do not walk over the dog leash.
If you
whilst
destroy your career, then that's on you. That's just.
Do we do that? It's a good night for him.
Here, one different. Do I get to mention my book, by the way, at any stage? Can I do that? This is shameless.
In a minute, but do it as long as we can end with it's a good night from me and it's a good night from him. No.
No.
Our American audience will have no clue, or actually unless you're in the UK and about as old as we are. Nobody
I'm pretending not to. I'm going to regret that. Folks, if you want, look it up on YouTube. I believe that was something that was in England years ago.
Or look up the skit Fork Candles.
Or don't and save yourself.
Look up the skit Fork Candles, one of the funniest skits ever known to man.
You won't get the time back, folks. You will not get the time back.
Listen, Kieran, if I remember, didn't you write a book recently?
Oh, I think the fact that you did the foreword for it and I've shamelessly used your name throughout that particular epistle. Yes,
you used my name. I got some credit in the book as well. What could I possibly have to say to be of interest to a book like yours?
Well, whatever lie you wrote, I'm happy.
Beggars couldn't be choosers.
That's it. No one else would do it. A bit like this podcast. No one else would turn up. So I went with what I had.
All right, we'll put the link to your book in the blog post podcasty thingy wherever we post it.
I knew there was a reason behind doing all.
How do you get to look that up though if you're walking on your phone right around a shopping mall listening to us or ignoring us? I don't know. Anyway, we'll figure that out. But yeah, Kieran's written a great book. It's all about the subject matter that we're going to be covering as well on the podcast, assuming we don't talk about children and on airplanes and things like that,
or 40-year-old British comedy shows.
But the world is changing. It's a digital revolution. Come and join us. Share your view. Get into the fight. We'll love to have you.
Fantastic.
We need to put a rap than that, for fuck's sake.
Oh yeah, we so do.
All right. So do the rap. Do the rap. Take two.
See, when you mean rap, you don't literally mean rap. You mean a rap.
No, I'm not going to try that. I've tried that, and my kids just leave the room. So
about to exit.
This is the Fight Club podcast wrap up. Take two. Hey, listen, appreciate everybody joining us on this
journey.
Journey. No, this start to our journey.
Nice.
And if you've got any, you've got to send comments. You've got to give feedback. You've got to share this podcast if you've enjoyed it. Share it if you haven't. Share it with your enemies if you need to. We really appreciate it. And Kieran, this has been great too. I'm going to love just doing this with you because you're a great friend.
Good man. Talk soon. Let's see if we can work it out.
Ciao.
Kind of a journey anyway. Thanks, folks.
Boom, 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 boom.